I'm so glad to be here. So it's Super Bowl Sunday. So the clear choice for Super Bowl Sunday is the lady in the wheelchair in the congregation. Just kidding. Maybe Tim Tebow wasn't available. I'm just kidding again. Right about now, if you are totally on zero with me and my story, which is very possible, you're probably flipping out like, wait, I come to church to feel better about my life, and there's a girl in a wheelchair on this stage. Is this really sad? Is this about to majorly bum me out? This looks like it could be majorly bummer. Not exactly Sunday fun day. And maybe you're actually the sweet church lady in the back who's right about now thinking like, bless her heart. That poor little thing, boy, she must be having a real hard time. Well, let me assure you, I am not having a really hard time. And this will hopefully not be a bummer message for you. I hope not. I don't think it will. I actually, though, don't really want to do something else. I don't want to inspire you today, which sounds so funny to say also, I know, but I really don't have any interest in inspiring you with my story or in bumming you out with my story, neither one. I want to do something very different that I think the Lord has really called me to do, which is linked to our stories, because they're actually all the same story, even though they may look totally different. Have any of you had a brainstem stroke, very nearly died, and become severely disabled afterwards? Maybe there's a few. No, there never has been ever before. And yet, have any of you ever had any pain in your life? Any suffering? Anybody? Pain, suffering? It's so universal that we've all had hard stuff that's not okay, pain, and stuff that did not end the way we thought it would. And it's so interesting because I'm the one in this physical wheelchair on the outside of my body. But I think we all have these invisible wheelchairs, don't we? Inside of us, all these internal things that are not okay in our stories. And I sit in this thing every day. And yet I bet most of us in this room could possibly admit that they've got one of these inside every day that nobody sees. And you know what's really interesting that I feel like the Lord allowed me to recognize, I mean, not that long ago, just a few years ago, was that when I had the stroke and subsequently, in the years that followed, people would use the term wheelchair bound. You've heard this. She's bound to a wheelchair, we're still bound. Wheelchair bound. And I can remember that always just rubbing me wrong. Like, I'm not wheelchair bound, I don't think. Like, I don't like that expression even. And I realized it's because it's not accurate. And that's why I didn't like it. That I am not wheelchair bound. And that actually has nothing to do with the fact that I can stand. Nothing to do with that, actually. Nothing physical. The reason I am not wheelchair bound is because the wheelchair is a vehicle to my freedom. I'm wheelchair free because the wheelchair enables me to do my life. It enables me to go where I want to go, to be in the rooms or the stages I want to be on. The wheelchair actually is an agent to me living what God called me to live. And that's pretty powerful. So here's the link. Could it be, perhaps, I say that with such tenderness, but perhaps these various wheelchairs in our lives could possibly be avenues through which we find freedom, I'm not about to say for sure, but I'm definitely here to say it is worth examining and investigating in your life and your story. Where is the Lord taking you, even if it's not the way you ever thought you would go? And I'm going to sit down so I don't fall, because I can't stand for very long. But I should show you that I can walk a little. I can kind of move a little, dance. I can get kind of spicy, kind of go back to the side. I'll spare you. I can do a few moves, though. Anyway, I love that Louie invited me to share today, and maybe it was because Tim Tebow wasn't available, but maybe not. Maybe it was actually because Louie is really on to something. That in this series, Seek First, Put God First, how are we possibly able to do that when we are in terrible pain in life? How can we ever put God first when our lives are not working out well? The last thing we're thinking about is how to put God first when our lives are literally falling apart. We're in terrible pain. Suffering has hit the story. So how can we reorient to do that? Can we do that? Do we want to do that? And I would love to unpack that with y'all for a few minutes, because I think probably in all of our stories, we have to ask that question sometimes. How can I possibly put God first, the clear call of the Bible, when my life is falling apart, when things are not working out, when I have tremendous unmet expectations, and I don't know which way up is? How can I possibly look up at God? Where's up? Is the reality. That disorientation of life hits our stories. So I'm going to very briefly, Reader's Digest, tell you my story, and then jump in with the good nuggets. So here we go. My name is Katherine, and I married my college sweetheart. I'm from Athens, Georgia. Woohoo, go Dogs, or whatever you like. I love them all. I went to Stanford University, married my college sweetheart, Jay Wolf, and we went on this adventure to California. We don't really know why. We just moved across the country when we were young and stupid. And we lived in Malibu. Jay was in law school at Pepperdine. I got unexpectedly pregnant with a little baby, which was God's timing, right on time, and had James Thompson on October 16th, 2004. Sorry, I got married in 2004, baby is 2007. And 6 months, 5 days after that sweet baby came into the world, I woke up and felt funny. And I could tell you the next 12 hours, well, no, I couldn't tell you 12 because I don't have consciousness for that long. I can tell you about the next 6, where I just felt dizzy, and that was about it. And basically, I had an AVM, which is an arteriovenous malformation, rupture in my brainstem. And when it ruptured, it caused a massive brainstem stroke. An AVM is this crazy little collection of blood vessels that malforms, forms wrong in your mother's womb. When she was pregnant with me, this collection of blood vessels was in there. I was born with it. I believe I was fearfully and wonderfully made with it. So I'm growing as a 26-year-old. It's grown and grown and grown, and mine explodes. I told my son's kindergarten class, Mommy's brain exploded. And when it's kind of funny and kind of weird, do you laugh? You can, and now you can, not for a while. But I had the AVM rupture, and it caused a massive stroke. And when I had the stroke, the doctors took me into surgery and decided to operate. It was very touch and go if they'd even operate on me because I was so far gone. And they did decide to operate. One brave surgeon, actually, Nestor Gonzalez, did. And he performed a 16-hour brain surgery. And obviously, I lived, but there were and are, as you can see, pretty tremendous deficits. Some you see, some you don't. My hand doesn't work. Obviously, I have no fine motor, and I can't really walk. And I see, 2 images all the time. I have double vision, and I'm nearly blind in one eye, and I'm deaf in one ear, and my face is paralyzed, and blah, 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 blah. I have loads and loads of physical issues. My body is ravaged after what I thought was because I'm a stroke survivor. That's always how I linked it up. I'm a stroke survivor, so now I'm disabled. But that is actually not the link. It's fascinating. It kind of is. It's part of it. But the reason I am in this impaired state is because the wise and careful surgeon made the decision to wound me very greatly in order for me to live. Isn't that a fascinating biblical truth? That in all of our stories, could the wise and careful surgeon have to make sacrifices in order for there to be flourishing in our stories? I believe if you have a pulse, you have a purpose. And I have a pulse. And I think the Lord has given me tremendous purpose on earth, in the land of the living, to share the goodness of God. And that is something that, perhaps was not supposed to be, which that's always funny, like, well, if it wasn't supposed to be, it wouldn't have been. And I'm here, so this is what's supposed to be, I guess. And what a comfort is that in each and every one of our stories. So yeah, it's been a lot. I think we're going to show a picture of how I reconciled, but didn't so much just yet, but I'll get to how. Yay, Jesus, working, and the surgeon did the surgery, and blah, blah, blah. And there is such real deep joy in the Lord in this story. But there has been pretty horrible pain, so I never want to brush over that. And we're going to show a picture of my first Mother's Day with James. Keep in mind, he was 6 months old when I had the stroke, and here he's about 8 months old. And I have such a complicated relationship with that photograph because I'm so thankful I have it, because I have no memory of that day. But that is sad, very, very sad. And I've wanted, as I share, to never communicate that it's just joy on the other side of terrible loss. I don't think that actually serves the Christian community. I think the reality is there is, in fact, low-grade sorrow and sadness, even in the most incredible glory stories, because we are left with the reality, the remains, the fallout. We're left with scars. I very much believe that scars are the best part. They're the best part of my story. And yet, they're scars. They're there. I'm hurt by what's happened to me in life. I can say that. It's almost embarrassing to be vulnerable to the degree where you can say, God hurt my feelings. And he did. And, there is a sadness that it has dissipated as the years have gone by, but it will likely be lifelong, that I will feel a little bit in shock. Like, I cannot believe this happened to me to this day. And I have found tremendous purpose. I have seen the Lord move powerfully, but it is still sad. And I don't think that's actually wrong. I think somebody lied to somebody who lied to somebody who said, you know what, like, everything's gonna get all better one day. Just you wait. I do believe that's true, but I don't believe they're talking about on earth. One day there will be no more tears, but that is not the side of heaven, I believe. I love the David Crowder song, actually, and I know you people love him too. That earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. We're not in heaven yet. And I think there is sorrow and sadness while we're on earth. I try not to dwell on the sadness, I don't think, of my story, but I recognize, and I got to be on tour all last fall with Priscilla Shire, if you know who that is. I was her special guest on her tour. I know, I'm still pinching myself. And she pulled me aside. I can't remember where we were, maybe Wichita or Minneapolis or somewhere, and she said, always tell your story, no matter what you teach, what you say, always tell your story, and always tell everybody who will listen that there's still sorrow, there's still sadness, and that can be lifelong. She said, people need to hear that. And I was like, coming from you, I will do what you say. And I think I should. I think that's real, that there is joy and there is also sorrow and hardship in our stories. And they can be beautiful, beautiful stories. I'm about to tell you one. As sad as that picture is from that Mother's Day of that baby with Mama, there's been such beautiful stuff happening here. I did go on after 7 years to have a little brother for that guy. John Nestor was born on June 15th, and he is a joy and a wild man. I couldn't say that first service because he was here, but he is worn me down. And being a disabled mom has been intense, to say the least. But John is just this precious, precious gift. His name, John, named for the apostle, middle name Nestor, for my neurosurgeon, Nestor Gonzalez, whose life's work has been giving second chances to mommies just like me. His name in Hebrew, we did not know this at the time, means seeker of miracles. So we named our kid, the Lord has been gracious, seeker of miracles, Wolf. And we feel like that's a really good name for that kid. And yeah, so we are living this crazy life, a family of 4 right up the street here in Atlanta. And it's not perfect, but it's a wonderful life. We are very, very, very blessed. And I get to share here and there about what the Lord is doing in this story today. And it is just a joy to speak into this sermon series on putting God first and recognizing in my own heart, and maybe sharing with all of you to consider that even in pain, we can put God first when we choose to recognize and acknowledge and live into the reality that life is both good, hard at the very same time. It's not mutually exclusive at all. You know, I love, love, love the truth that when we have to go to the darkness, the deep darkness in our lives, that there's treasure there, special treasure hidden in secret places. That's Isaiah 45, verse 3, where it says, I will give you hidden treasure. I will give you hidden treasure in the darkness, riches stored in secret places, so that you may know me, the God of Israel, the God who summons you by name. And I love that thought that, yeah, thanks, that if you're going into the deep, deep darkness, that there's treasure there for you, and you get to get that treasure and cherish it and champion it for your entire life. You let it inform the way you move forward after it. You never need to leave those nuggets behind, but carry them with you every day for the rest of your entire life. And to me, that's exactly what the good, hard life is all about. I made up a word. You may have heard me saying it over and over. It's GoodHARD. There it is on the screen. It's one word. Things are not just good and they're not just hard, are they? They're good and hard. They're GoodHARD. They're not mutually exclusive. They coexist, and I believe that's the Christian life. I want to share with you Colossians 3, in the Message version, translation, whatever you want to say, because here it is. If you're serious about living this new resurrection life with Christ, which, yeah, I am, so I want to act like it. Pursue the things over which Christ presides. Don't shuffle along, eyes to the ground, absorbed with the things right in front of you. Look up and be alert to what is going on around Christ. That's where the action is. See things from his perspective. So, yeah, whoa, aren't we all doing that? Aren't we all looking straight up? No? No, I don't think we are. I think, we're very distracted down here. You may have noticed. We kind of got a lot going on. So it's really hard to look up at him, seek him first, put God first, whatever you want to say. It's really hard to even look out at the broken world around you, because what we are doing is going inward. We're like, I gotta protect myself. I got me and my tribe here that all think alike, and we're gonna go together. And I've just been hurt by the world. I gotta protect myself and my loved ones. And I end up staring at my navel gazing. You may have heard it. I gotta look at me and protect me, my people, and I gotta look good, and I gotta feel good, and I gotta get all the goodies, and then I will have a quote unquote good life, right? Well, I don't know. I have been very, very, confused, hurt, concerned about how you reconcile the goodness of God when life falls apart. How can God be good? I mean, I'm sure perhaps in your own life you've questioned, how can Psalm 84:11 be true? That no good thing does he withhold from those walking uprightly with him. How can God withhold no good thing when we know people every day, and perhaps ourselves included, who are walking uprightly with the Lord and their lives are falling apart? They have horrible medical diagnosis, financial crisis, addictions of all sorts, pain, problems, you name it. How can God's goodness be in this? And I was at a conference years ago, and I was speaking, and Sarah Groves, who's an incredible musician out of Minnesota, played a song she had written called "Open My Hands." And in this song, the opening lyrics say, I believe in a blessing I can't understand. I've seen rain fall on the wicked and the just. Rain is no measure of his faithfulness. He withholds no good thing from us. Now, I remember her rolling up to her right after the conference and being like, Sarah, talk me through your process. How did you get there? How did you reconcile God's goodness? All this, just talk me through it. And she pointed me to a brilliant theologian named Sir Richard Baker, who wrote in the 1600s the following that has absolutely changed my life. I'm going to put it on the screen. You need to take this one home if you don't already have it. If you haven't already heard me talk about it, I'm full on obsessed with this, because God's goodness is not physical things at all. Let me say that again for the lady in the back. God's goodness is not physical things at all. The true goodness of God, the best things of God, are the peace of conscience, joy in the Holy Spirit, the fruition of his presence in this life, and the assurance of his face in the next. Of these things, we can then know that God will never withhold from those walking with him. Are you kidding me? That is powerful, because here's what happens. No matter what has been in my story since the stroke, and there's been some pretty tough stuff. It's been almost 14 years since the stroke. And I've had, honestly, some really bad stuff happen to me. I've broken my leg. I fell in the bathtub and broke some ribs. Most recently, I tore my ACL, MCL, and meniscus from a horrible fall into 2020, appropriately. I've had 13 surgeries since the stroke. I've had multiple neurovascular conditions after the AVM. I separately had a brain aneurysm removed. After that, I've separately had multiple vertebral artery dissections, and I have an unknown future, very honestly, in some neurological realms. And it's been rough, really tough. And that's not even touching the emotional pain and toll of knowing my sweet husband is, a lifelong caregiver. My children are growing up with a mother who's fully disabled and will never do blah, 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 blah for them. And you can imagine, just a lot of reconciling really awful pain, both physical and emotional in this story. And no matter how bad things have gotten, or honestly will get in the future, I've had a very deep sense of this truth that in my life, post-stroke, definitely did not cultivate this till after the stroke, that the truly good things of God are here and they can never be taken away from me. So nothing, yay. So, glory to God. So that is for all of us. In all of our hard stories, we are untouchable by this world, because the truly good things of God are not of this world. And that's powerful truth for you in your nightmares. Now, it does not mean it is easy, but there is such a comfort in knowing God is not ever abandoning me. He's right here. He's with me, and that is actually everything that I need. Now, I will say, that is really, really cool to hear, that the good things of God are all around us and we're untouchable. But the reality is, you may not be feeling it all the time. You may not be feeling that goodness of God. So I'm making a memory in your brain right now by standing up. Wake on up if you're getting a little sleepy in the back, because this is super important truth. And actually, I wasn't going to share this today, but then 2 weeks ago at church, Louie actually shared this passage, so I knew I had to elaborate. Now, Psalm 42:5 is this amazing truth, and before I say it, I'm going to share this. Sometimes you just have to fake it till you make it. Sometimes you just have to do this. You have to get bossy with your own soul. And that is the key to dealing with tragedy. Get bossy. Psalm 42:5 says, "Why are you downcast, O my soul? Why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, for I will again praise him, my rock and my salvation." So you see what you got to do. You see what he did. He got his soul back on board. Said, okay, I know you're not feeling it right now, but this is what we're doing, because I know where you want to go. You want to go to where there is truth. Not just, I feel this way, but I know to be true, even deeper than my feelings, that I got to get you back on board and coming on with me. You know where I've seen this so powerfully displayed is in our camp community. My husband and I founded a camp 5 years ago called Hope Hills Camp. And it is a family camp where anyone dealing with disabilities is invited to come. It's a lottery system for free to come and bring their family unit to camp to enjoy a week of just celebrating, being a family, being together, being alive in a wonderful camp environment surrounded with like love and just tenderness and support. And this community has been transformative to us for so many reasons. But among the most critical to share with you is that what camp has done has changed our baseline. And that's what camp can do with a bunch of wheelchairs and amputees and real CP, spina bifida, all the way down, all kinds of disabilities, is it changes the atmosphere of what you talk about. Nobody cares when your kid goes to college. What a joke. They're wondering if your kid is terminal. Will they live through college days? Or, yeah, we've had 7 campers pass away since we started camp. And I've been able to attend several of the funerals. And, you know, we really committed that if we are going to do life together, we're going to do death together with these families. It's intense and raw and real and holy. Because and I see a wonderful camper right there who I love, and I love her wheelchair. And I've seen, and you know, pretty much everybody who's been has seen, that together as a community of people living with disabilities, we are able to corporately disrupt the deep lie, the idol that joy is only found when life is pain-free. Because these people, meaning these people, know all too well that is simply not true. That there is pain in the story, but there can still be joy even in painful stories, and there can still be pain in joyful stories. It's all commingled. And, you know, one of the reasons we started camp was we didn't know, we were not seeing many people like our family. Like our family was not seeing many other families where somebody is disabled. And that's not because they don't exist, by the way. 20% of the population of America is disabled. You just don't see this population. They're invisible. It's ludicrous. Let's change this. They're the highest population that is unchurched in the world. Like there's just not really a rally cry for the disability community, to be honest. So that was a big motivation to start the camp. Specifically was so that our little boys could see this is not that weird. This is not that different. There are plenty of families where somebody is disabled, plenty of families where a mama is disabled, and we can do this life. And those little boys, very imperfectly, are growing in the knowledge of that and are being shaped by it. It's informing their lives. And, you know, it's complicated. It's complicated to have children at all. It's complicated to have children when you're mothering from a wheelchair. And perhaps one of those stories that I won't read from, but just tell you, is when we first moved to Atlanta. My oldest, James, was saying his little nightly prayers and prayed for a good day, which is such a normal prayer for a 10-year-old kid to pray. And Mama Bear jumped in and said, "No, Lord, we pray for a day that may be hard, may be good, but a day where we honor you and are faithful to you in that day. And I pray that these boys will know that whatever their day and days look like, they can walk with you through the fire in them." And I remember everybody kind of looking a little stunned because it was almost like, it was a lot of things. It was me needing to pray that for Catherine. It was little girl Catherine needing to hear that. But it was me wanting them to know that, to grow up knowing life may not always feel good, little boys, but that doesn't mean it is not good. It's very different. And it's been very powerful because now both my husband and I will say to them a lot, and they can say it back to us, "Yeah, we know God made you to do the hard thing in the good story that he's writing in your life." And what is so cool is on some deep level, they know it is a good story, because that's the only story God can write is good stories. But that in fact, it may be hard. But they can do hard things because God has already equipped them with everything that they need. And that is what we are pouring into them. And I would challenge you, pour that into you and your people. That God has equipped you for whatever your assignment looks like in life. His divine power has given you every single thing you need to do the hard stuff in the journey that He has uniquely assigned to you while you are on earth. In closing, I'm going to give you a few takeaways of how to embrace the good, hard life, which frees us to truly live, putting God first, seeking the kingdom of God. The first one is to expect more of God and less of this world. You may be familiar with John 16:33, that in this world you will have trouble, but you can take heart, you can be of good cheer, because He has overcome the world. And I love that so much, because our expectations are everything, aren't they? That this thought that, like, if I know this world is messed up, if I know things are not okay, if I live with that as the baseline, I'm in reality. I'm in alignment with what's going to be happening here. It's not all coming up roses, except it actually is one day. It's just not yet. So I live with tremendous hope, and in reality, I call it hope while you cope. Life is hard, but I'm hoping for what's ahead, and I know I can take heart. I can be of good cheer, even if right now this is not awesome. And that is so important. Let's adjust our expectations. Point number 2, steward whatever is in the story. Anything that's in the story, let's steward it. Let's recognize that we are on an assignment. I love it how Pastor Louis talks a lot about steward your story, leverage your life. This language has been so valuable to me, to feel a sense of calling. And that is each one of us. Our lives are by design. It has been so freeing for me to recognize, like, this is exactly what the Lord has for me right now to do, right in front of my nose. Everybody's so obsessed with some life way over there. How about the life you got right in front of your nose? Live it well. Why is no one saying that? This is it. We could all do our life, not wishing someone else's life was the reality. Which brings me to point number 3. Let's cultivate a ridiculous level of gratitude for what remains in the story. What remains in the aftermath. Forget what was in the past. Let's live into what is right now. Oh, I know, but I love this feedback. Thank you. It is really good, because what remains is what is remaining in your future, at least for right now. Let's live into this stuff. I love the truth of Psalm 16:6, that the boundary lines have fallen in pleasant places. Okay, so my boundary lines are a little bit small these days. I don't have a very far radius in some realms of what I can do. I can't even drive a car. I'm in a wheelchair. Like, the boundary lines are pretty intense. And yet, this little plot is pretty fabulous. Like, I love who is in this little thing I got between these boundary lines. My family is here. My incredible husband, my precious children, my larger wonderful family, my church family, my whole world is right here. Why can't I say out loud to you, this is everything that I need. I have a God who is with me here in these boundary lines, whatever they look like. That is pretty powerful stuff. No one, thank you, glory to God, No one can tell you how to feel about your life. You realize this? So you may not have control over what happens in your story. You may not have control over a lot in our lives, to be honest. We like to think we do, but we don't. We don't have control over a lot. But you know what we do have absolute control over? How we think about it, how we remember it, the story we tell ourselves about how it went down, how we narrate it, how we choose to internalize the God who is with us, how we see God's hand throughout it. These are all things within our control. And that is very, very powerful, in my estimation, changing your brain level of paradigm shifting goodness. I think I just made up a bunch of words. You get it. Something very incredible happens to your brain when you realize, like, I am on assignment and I get to love it down here. I love this life. This is actually a seat of honor. Like, wait, what? A wheelchair? Yeah, guess what? I get to decide what this is. That's pretty cool in all of our lives. We get to decide how we think about our stories. Lastly, super important, I love the notion of look at your life. Take responsibility for it and get creative, which sounds kind of crazy to say, but I love the truth of Galatians 6:4-5 in the Message translation, where it says, make a careful exploration of who you are and the work that you've been given. And sink yourself into that. Don't be impressed with yourself. Don't compare yourself with others. Each of you must take responsibility for doing the creative best you can with your own life. Isn't that powerful? We are called to take responsibility for our stories and then to get creative as we live them out. Who does this remind me of? I know, Jesus Christ. He was quite constrained to human flesh, at the very least constrained from there through death, rose through constraints, so honestly we can live well within ours. The bottom line is this: we can take careful exploration, as that verse said, of our story, of the story that God is writing. Let's look at it. Let's turn it on and up our brains. You know, when suffering hits, we want to turn off our brains and just emergency mode. Let's, when the time is right, examine the story God is writing. Then take responsibility for it. You're not the victim. I'm not the victim. I'm the overcomer, and so are you of your story. So take responsibility. Don't play the victim, and then live with creativity within the story. Recognize what God is doing and get on board with it. I think that's all I'm going to share, because that is good stuff. Take that home with you. You are not the victim of your story, because God is at work in this story. He wants you exactly where you are, doing exactly what you're doing. And well, unless you're doing something, whatever. I won't get into that. You get it. God is in the mess, with all of us on the move, with all of us longing for us to persevere, even through really, really hard, messed up stuff, messed up stories. I love the truth of Hebrews 12, that therefore, since we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, we can throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And we can run or roll with perseverance the race marked out before us. We can fix our eyes on Jesus. And that's the bottom line. It goes on to say that we can consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that we ourselves will never grow weary or lose heart. And that is my prayer, that we can be so inspired by the assignment that we are on, that we will never grow weary, but instead live on purpose. We are on mission, and let's wake up and live like it. I'd love to pray for y'all.